everyone. I am Bani and I welcome you all to the Battle of English. Today we are here to this wonderful event which held once a week under the coordination of our English literature Sir Atchuthan Yogarajah. And I am honorably welcome him, our presenters, teachers, volunteers, and viewers. First of all, I would like to call Achana to deliver the topic uh, under the poem terrace he is watching. Terrace he is watching is a poem which gives us the curious used in the poem. Let's see how she is analyzing this poem. I give the side to Achana.
Good day to you all. Today I would like to speak about the terrorist case watching by Wisława Szymborska. The poetess Wisława Szymborska was a Polish woman. She was an essayist, translator, and Nobel Prize winner for literature. The title of the poem suggests a context common in many societies that terrorists setting the bombs in public and other places to kill people and destroy their properties. Sri Lanka underwent a similar calamity for more than 30 years. Civilians, military personnel, and even VIPs died in bomb blast. This is happening in many countries even now. Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Russia, Ukraine, and Myanmar are some good examples for such acts even now. According to the poem, a terrorist has planned a time bomb in a bar where many people go in and come out. What is a terrorist? He is a person who uses violent acts to frighten the people in areas as a way of trying to achieve a political goal or accomplish any other extreme aims and objectives. This really causes massive death and violence. It also affects the entire fabric of society, creating unrest, anxiety, depression, and so on. Thus, the terrorist in the poem represents the nature of terrorism. They do not have a normal constitution. It is a hazard for mankind. Terrorists are very specific for what they want. They do not have any sympathy or compassion when they achieve their targets. Terrorism is usually of two kinds as political terrorism and criminal terrorism. Political terrorism is much more dangerous than the criminal terrorism as they are well trained and it is difficult for the law enforcing agencies to arrest them in the time. Terrorist acts are well planned. Terrorists are usually younger, but they are handled by well experienced terrorist leaders and seasoned politicians. Terrorists mostly recruit for younger people in their groups and organizations as it easy to brainwash them. Modern terrorists use technology to fulfill their targets. In this poem, the time bomb is such a destructive device. In the first stanza, when the bomb is setting, the time was 30 hours and 60 minutes. The bomb would explode at 30 hours and 20 minutes. The poet successfully uses a digital time and counting down technique, virtually against the period of tension. 4 minutes gap is a short period, but the writer telescopes many incidents within this time, so it appears to be a movie. In the second stanza, the terrorist crosses the street and stays in a place from where he could see the explosion. Most terrorists do this for their safety. In the rest of the poem, the narrator describes the action taking place like a cricket commentator. There is no fear or grief in the narrator's words here. The narrator merely describes the movement of the people. It's obvious the terrorist would view all this from a distance. The poet uses the third person omniscient point of view in narrating the scenes of the poem. The term omniscient means knowing everything. In the poem, the narrator is fully aware of the time bomb planted to in bar. Further, he also seems to have the power of reading others' mind. There are many. There are mainly two characters in this poem. They are the terrorist and the narrator. The terrorist should be responsible for planting the bomb. He has already crossed the street and is waiting for the result from a safe distance. He could represent the aims and objectives of terrorist organization. Meanwhile, the narrator observes the terrorists as well as the events related to the bar. He reports everything happening all around the bar like a commentator. What is the identity of the narrator? It is somewhat enigmatic. However, we can guess that he may be an assistant of the terrorist, or else he may be an informant employed by the terrorist organization to report the progress of the work as the third party. And therefore, as the title suggests, the terrorist is watching. The narrator is watching the terrorist. Here, it is obvious that he is watching not only the terrorist but also all the movements, action, etc. The narrator is somewhat soft-hearted and warm-hearted about the victims. That is why he says that the tall teenager is lucky when he leaves the place. He seems to be happy about his escape from death. The short one, he is lucky. He is getting on a scooter. Otherwise, he could have been worried losing one victim. Moreover, he is worried about the jungle, whether she went inside the bar at the critically dead second. However, he cannot help them or prevent this tragedy, except watching it silently according to his assigned duty. Suspense is another literary technique used in this poem. Suspense is the intense feeling that the audience goes through while waiting for the outcome of certain events. It basically leaves the readers holding their breath and wanting more information. Without suspense, a reader would lose interest quickly in any story because the reader has nothing to ask what's going to happen next. In writing, Yar has to be a series of events that leads to a climax that captivates the audience and makes them tense and anxious to know what is going to happen. This In this point, the poet mentions suspense throughout the counting down technique. It comes to a climax with the explosion of the bomb, but it continues to see the outcome of the bomb explosion. The poet also creates imagery throughout the counting down technique. All the above scenes are related to visual imagery except the last one, the bomb explosion, because it creates auditory imagery. We will in this poem, we don't know what will happen next. So the tone of this poem is excited and it creates curiosity in reader's mind. Uh, Thus, when a country suffers from terrorism, it is the destiny that decides our lifespan. In the poem, it is obvious that the teenager escaped from his untimely death by leaving the place. But the tall one goes inside the bar to embrace death. Even the fat black guy goes back to take his worthless gloves without knowing the imminent risk for his life. Thus, it is ironic that the people who happen to leave the place before 120 have good timing, but those who happen to be inside in the wrong place at wrong time become the victims. It is up to our destiny to decide the correct time and correct place or wrong time. Thus, terrorism is a curse that death can be lurking anywhere with its ugly face to take innocent human lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Achana, for your wonderful presentation. Next, I would like to call Miss Verlini to present the Frost Lumber Room. Lumber Room is a story written by the famous writer Sahih, who is real name is Hester H. Monroe. He shows the childhood memory of his childhood memories and See how Volney is telling about the prose lumber room. I give the side to Volney.
Prose lumber room. I wish to talk to you about the prose number room, mainly about the tones and moods that the author mentioned in the prose number room. And if we take this prose, it's a short story written by the author Saki, and we all know that it's a biographical element of the author Saki, and it's a story of a young boy who lives with his aunt from his childhood and how much troubles he faces because of the arrogant aunt. And we already talk about this whole incident in this prose and the meaning of this prose at the end. So when we talk about the tones and moods, first of all, we have to understand what is tones and what is moods. Tones are like the apparent attitude of the author, like if a writer wrote a book or poem or anything that he wished to convert to a reader, then he should include some of the characters to the particular person in that book as a character. Then only the readers can understand what the author wants to tell us and what is the meaning of that character. It will help us to understand the character and this whole story, uh, hopefully. And the second thing is mood. Moods are like it's very moods and tones are very influenced with each other because without tones we can't imagine moods in a reader's mindset, because moods are the one which exposes the feeling of a reader towards the author's character mentioned in the storybook or poems or something. So these tones and moods play a huge role in even in our day-to-day life. But as you know, literature is something that we all used to experience in our day-to-day life. So literature always included these tones and moods in every part of literature. It doesn't matter if it's poem or prose or dramas or anything. We used to see these things, but sometimes we may forget to notice this. So this prose lumber room. When we talk about this prose, we can understand some of the characters in this prose. The first protagonist of this story is Nicholas. He's the one who is young and very mischievous around the whole story. So Nicholas is someone who is very playful and who love to enjoy every minute of his life. And he lives with his aunt and with some of his cousins and sister. So his cousins didn't play that much role in this story, and the antagonist of this story, not that much serious antagonist, but if you look it in a children's point of view, then the aunt seems like an antagonist. So her characters also influence in these tones of the author. The prose starts with the scenery that this little boy called Nicholas, refused to eat his breakfast of bread and milk just because there was a crack in that his bread and milk. So it seems like he refused to eat the breakfast, and as readers, when we read the coming lines, we can understand that he is the one who put the frog by himself in his breakfast. So from this, we can understand that Nicholas is a very mischievous person who is always make trouble around the house. But it's usual for a kid to do these activities around the house and in the elders' things. But the aunt is the one, we can find the aunt's character as the one who can't understand, who is unable to understand the character of kids, and she can't keep on with this children's mindset. And we should understand children's mindset to behave with them and to live with them. But this aunt seems like she's very terrible in her character, and she couldn't understand what the kid wants to tell her, what the kid wants to even he wants to play, or in which place he wants to live with. He didn't care about anything. She didn't care about any of the kids' care. So, if we saw the tones and process, uh, the first thing is we can find this. Nicholas mentions a phrase that the older and wiser and better people told me that there was no frog. It's impossible to be a frog in that. But it seems like there was a frag and there was a proof that showed by Nicholas. He proved his state of opinion. So it shows that, we can't usually address a person who seems talking unlogical. We can't say them like older and wise and better people. But here Nicholas used this phrase. We know this. It's a technique of sarcastic to mention. Unwise person as a wise person. So here Nicholas used this phrase, and we can notice that it's a tone that used by the author Saki to make an impressive character. To make an impressive feeling on that character Nicholas in reader's mindset, because as a young little boy we can all of us can have a various opinion about that boy if he didn't mention those some of his behaviors, because not every kid can't be the same mindset and that same age. Some will be quiet and some will be very mature even at 8 and 9 years old, and some will be very playful and joyful and do all trouble things around like this boy Nicholas. So the writer mentioned this word even at the start to make an impressive character in this Nicholas, to make the readers read on going. And second tone from the Nicholas someone is comic. We all know that comic we used to see in these newspapers and all of this. The comics means something very funny or something. So we know that Nicholas is very mischievous kid, and he is very he used to do any kind of thing which will make him happy. So which will make him happy, and he didn't care about anything what his aunts tried to say, because even though his aunts try to punish him and tries to mentally make him depressed, but he didn't care about him. Of course, as a kid he used to have some stressed out, but he will have some of his own opinion about himself. And we can find him even at the end of the story, as he wants to lead his life as the way he wants. So, and sarcastic, comic, and funny characters, we can find it in the boy Nicholas By the author, he is the one who put those tones in this Nicholas character. So, from these tones, we can come to our idea about that boy Nicholas, that he is someone who is very practical on his lifestyle. Even at the little age of his life, he know how to handle his terrible land. And if we look at the aunt character, actually, most of the apart from this whole story, we know that the story is not depend on only those tones and moods. It depends on the word choices and settings and the literary devices and all of this. But these tones and moods, particularly. Depends on the author's feeling about the characters, because these help us to know about the characters, the book's characters attitudes towards the page to page, because just because their literary devices are good, the settings and techniques are good, we can't understand the character fully. But these tones and moods help us to make a connection between ourselves and the book. Even it doesn't matter if it's a poem or short story, but it helps us to make a connection between the book and us. And the second thing is, if we look at the aunt character, as we all know, she is an antagonist. Of course, she will be very arrogant and terrible in her character. So the tone arrogant make us to feel an uneasy thing towards the antagonist aunt, because she mentions that she punish Nicholas to not to go him into this gooseberry garden, but we all know that doesn't have any intention to go there. He just go there to bring a frog in his bread and milk. But initially, he loved to go there. As a kid, everyone goes to their favorite places. But on that moment, Nicholas had no idea whether he wants to go to the gooseberry garden or stay at home. But the aunt thought that just because he is roaming around the house, he becoming more mischievous. So she punished him to not to go to the gooseberry garden. But Nicholas, we can find him as the one who is very assertive in his character, and he has another thorn. It exposes the another character of Nicholas, that even though he's playful and mischievous, we all know that every kid are very assertive in their own ways. So he had no intention to go there into the garden, but still he wants to go there because his aunt say no to. So this character of that boy make a impressive impact on readers' mind, because if this character, if the writer Saki put this tone into a 30 years old person or into a 20 years old person, I think the readers wouldn't have that much impress on that character. But just because he is a little boy and he's very assertive in his decisions, it makes a positive impression on the readers, because as a kid, if he is very dull and very sad, it couldn't be that much interesting to read the short story fully. But writer Sagi mentioned this tone, and it will definitely make an impression for us towards the boy Nicholas. And the aunt, of course, she is very arrogant, and the another tone of her is Persuland. We all know that both of these characters have Persuland, I would say, because Nicholas is someone who is very Persuland in his decision. When he thought about something, he should do this according to his mind. And if we take Aunt's character, of course, he is also the Persian in her way, because if she punished him to not to go into the gooseberry garden, she repeatedly spying him again and again to not to make him any wrong move in her decisions, because she thinks that even she herself know that Nicholas will not respect her decision. So both of them, by putting Pershul and Stone to both of their character, of course, again it makes an impression. And also, writers will have multiple choices in their characters, because if not, if the author Sagi mentions the Pershul and character to only one person in the story, the story must have gone dull, because if someone give up in their ideas, of course, as an antagonist, the aunt will not give up in her ideas. But if you take Nicholas, if the writer Sagi did leave him in as a little boy who just give up and who just don't care about anything, it will be very dull for this story, and the readers wouldn't have enjoyed this much. But by putting this in both of the side, it will make curiosity in readers' mind to read further. And the another thing is, when the aunt fall into the empty water tank, empty rainwater tank, and again Nicholas wasn't go there, because he knows that his aunt is very arrogant, and there's no room for her to for sympathetic scenes and all of these in Nicholas' mindset. So when we read that paragraph, we can understand that his word choices are very non-sympathetic, I would say, because he says that that moral value, he talks about the old moral values where aunts used to say this before, like him, that he's an evil and there's an evil with you, that's why you are behaving so mischievously. So the Nicholas mentioned this again, and it shows a very humorous part of this short story, because this Nicholas boy, as a little boy, he's very perfect, even though there's absolutely there was no one to lead him carefully, because the writer mentions didn't mention anything about his parents, and his aunt is not that much careful about his future and his attitudes and all of this. But as himself, I would say he grow very well, and who knows to serve himself by the surrounding. and it shows, and he asked something that will there be a strawberry jam for tea, and of course the arts and selfishness behaviors women, the aunt will not usually give strawberry jam for these children, even though there would be. But here Nicholas asked this again, and he mentioned that there's an evil cashew because my aunt would not never say that there she would bring something strawberry jam to bread. So he mentioned this, and it's very humorous scene. And I would say, and this Nicholas' aunt is someone who is very selfish in her character because at first she said you should not go into the gooseberry garden, but when at the time when she fell in the rainwater tank, and the ladder is in the gooseberry garden, she pleases him to go into the gooseberry garden to bring the ladder. So it shows the selfish character of this aunt. And the selfishness tone that put by Odasaki brings a negative impact on the readers towards Nicholas' aunt. And the another thing is cheerful and sinister. If we say cheerful, it's a very positive tone, and if he comes to sinister, it's the very negative impact on the readers, which will make this whole short story into the totally turn into the another para. But if we see this, the cheerful characters, of course, we know this. It's a Nicholas. It's someone who is very joyful and who enjoys his life. But if it comes to the theme of sinister, the thorn sinister mentions about the aunt's character because she is very sinister in most of the parts of this short story. And of course it will make I would say it will make really bad impact on this reader's mind about this. And even though it's an imaginary character, as a children from this age, as 16, as a teenagers, we are also kids, and in our point of view, and even at some elders point of view, this antagonist character will be like our own enemy for us, because even though as an adult she doesn't know how to deal with children, and she's very selfish and sinister in her character. And the another thing is, in the at the start from the end of the story, we can notice that there is a silent conflict going between the aunt and the Nicholas, because even though they don't conflict themselves by those bushes and all of this, but still even though Nicholas is a little boy, he didn't back forward in his back up in his ideas, and he didn't say everything yes 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 for his aunt. He just stood forward to in against his aunt to prove himself. And all of his tones are influenced in the characterization, because without the understanding of characterization, I think we can't understand the whole story. So these protagonist and antagonist play the whole short story, because the Bobby and the other cousins didn't play that much influence in this short story. They just went to the Jack Sparrow sense. But this Nicholas and Aunt, they play most majority scenes of this play, and we can find something that the tone of creativeness in Nicholas when you get into the lumber room, and again there we can understand that he's totally a different person in the lumber room, because out there he was very awareful in his about his surrounding, and he was just thinking about what will next to make his aunt depressed or something, because he always makes trouble in front of his aunt. But in the lumber room we can find a totally different Nicholas, who is very creative and very sensitive, because even he gave a creature and he gave a soulful connection to even for a wallpaper, and even for some imagery and those duck shaped and china shaped teapots and all of this. So this represents these tones represent, because the out there tones and the tones in the lumber room represents two different meanings, because the two different meanings, first one is we can understand who is Nicholas is, because he has both side, and if we take it generally as tones, we can understand that the children's mindset is decided by their surrounding. Not just, you can't just say a kid like he's a loser or he's just a stupid by his thoughts. You have to change his surrounding first. If a kid's surrounding change, then his thoughts will be changed, and his surrounding play a most major role in his thoughts and his ideas in knowledge. So these two themes are included just because the tones and moods, because even though it doesn't matter how many tones the author puts, but we are the one as readers, we are the one who wants to understand the whole story, because our moods are the one who decides the story's balance system, because it depends on us which it's a good, if it is a good story or bad story. But these tones and moods, they are very connected to each other. If we loses one thing in this tones and mood, we can understand and read and study this whole story fully. So that is today's presentation. Thank you for listening.